chain. It's used to pay for transaction fees, and it also empowers holders with on-chain governance. So the transaction fees are paid in Radial for anchors, NFT minting, and Tinlake financing transactions, and many more functionalities to come in the future. And a percentage of these transaction fees go to an on-chain treasury that's controlled by Radial token holders themselves. The governance is on-chain, and it empowers these Radial holders to decide how to use these treasury funds, how to implement upgrades, parameters on-chain, asset classes, risks, and the participants that are able to interact with Tinlake. And then finally, the chain security is provided through Radial, staked as a source of value, and also rewarded to incentivize an honest and distributed set of validators today. And later on, as we intend to become a parachain, collators to provide both security and censorship resistance that's needed for the network to function. In the future, a couple of important elements that we want to add. Two important utilities, I'd say, for the Radial token. First is to power a native on-chain money market. Radial will be used for both the governance of that, as well as to pay for transaction fees. Radial will also be staked to provide economic security to an insurance DAO on Centrifuge chain for Tinlake investors. So with these two future functionalities, the Radial token not only provides technical security, but also asset security for the assets on Centrifuge chain financed through Tinlake. So that's just a little bit of overview of both Centrifuge and Radial, what it does in the system. And probably what you're super interested in is how to obtain the Radial token. So we think it's really important to bring Radial to our users. We currently have 3 live distribution channels for current users. The first one is our Liquidity mining reward. It is a program to reward asset originators and investors for each DAI invested and originated in a Tinlake pool. So these rewards can be claimed by users directly on chain. This app will be live probably shortly after the holidays. And the current reward for investors is about 0.25 rad per DAI locked for 60 days. And for asset originators, it's about 0.1 rad per DAI originated over 60 days. This reward curve will decrease over time, but for this first batch, at least for probably around the first million DAI that's invested or originated, it's going to be relatively flat. So there's not a huge change in the very beginning, but over time, as there's more and more use of Tinlake, do expect this reward to go down. We'll have more accurate numbers for you once this app goes live, but that's just an overview of where it stands today. This reward will also be extended to include more roles such as facilitators, and the real point here is to drive further decentralization in this borrowing and lending process. So that's what we're hoping to target with this liquidity mining reward, as well as just use of Tinlake as it is. So the next big distribution channel that we have is the network security reward. So this is minted each era directly to validators and nominators, and the current block reward is set at a 3% mint rate per year. There's currently 28 slots for validators in the active set, and we do have a democracy proposal that's live to raise this number to 32. We do plan to bid for a parachain slot next year, and we'll use a large portion of this block reward to incentivize DOT holders to stake on behalf of the Centrifuge slot. So do keep that in mind in terms of how this will change going forward. And finally, we just announced our community mining program, which brings Radial to even more users and at the same time fosters more communication within our community. This one is specifically targeted at discourse. And for this kickoff phase, we're hoping to distribute up to 2,500 Radial by the end of January. And we think this is just the beginning. We'll also have other grant programs in the future and bounties for things like technical development. So do stay tuned, subscribe to our newsletter, get in our Telegram chat to stay updated about more programs that are coming up in the future. So I hope that was a good introduction and overview. Oops. So I'll just leave it to your questions for now.
So we just had one question come up that was about running a node, how we can do that if we were going to cover that at all.
So we do have quite a lot of documentation up on getting started, and we do have a community Slack channel, which you can join at centrifuge.io/Slack. And there's a validators channel there where tons of questions have been asked and answered by validators in the community already. So that's probably a really good place to get started. I would suggest getting started on our test networks, Amber and Flint first, get up and running, and then let the community know that you're up and running, what your setup looks like, introduce yourself in our discourse, and try to get nominations from there.
Cool. And then Christian's asking about the amount of DAI in circulation. How much is now, and where is it going?
So as you can see on chain, that's about 419 million that's actually been minted. Only 200 million has actually been distributed, just about. So that's been distributed to the team, to existing investors, and as the reward that's been going to both validators, nominators, as well as previous investors in Tin Lake now. This other 200 million roughly is held by the Centrifuge Foundation, and that will be used over time for things like sales of the token in the future, bounty programs, etc. So I saw that in the Telegram chat, someone asked if we have a really specific plan for how that 200 million will be distributed. Don't expect it to be distributed all at once for sure. I think it's most reasonable to expect it to be distributed over time, but we don't have a specific plan there. And as well, of the 200 roughly million that has been distributed, a lot of those tokens are locked at the moment. So you won't find Radial on any exchanges. We don't expect that to happen for the time being, but definitely in the future at some point.
Cool. So VC is asking, do you plan to experiment with Kusama and launch a parachain on Kusama as well?
Not sure about that. I think we do plan to launch a parachain on Polkadot. Depends on how our development and testing goes, if we will look at Kusama as well.
Cool. And from Jacob, I imagine we'll be able to nominate, but what tokens are used to stake, DAI or RAD?
You can currently nominate with Radial tokens. So Radial is the token that's native to Centrifuge chain, and that's the token that you would use to nominate and stake towards validators. Is there a certain percent of Radial tokens in the locked supply that will be released yearly for the bounty programs, etc.? So there's no specific plan in terms of a release rate for Radial, other than the Radial that has been distributed to actual users. It does have a lockup, and so that will be released just by the users themselves if they intend to potentially sell the token in the future. The Radial that's held by the foundation, there's no specific plan other than this 3% block reward that is Radial that's actually minted, and then the Radial that's distributed as part of this Liquidity rewards program. So we don't have any information in terms of a potential sale of the token. We are planning on having a sale in the future. You do have to be an accredited investor to be able to supply dye to Tin Lake pools at the moment. And I think that's really based on the issuers as well.
But is that just for Americans, or Jason, do you know?
Only for US residents.
Yeah.
Cool. I think I caught all the questions there. Yeah, again, if you're US based, then you will need to be an accredited investor to hold RAD at the moment. Is there a minimum amount? So our asset originators generally look for a minimum of around 10,000 dye. I'm not sure, that probably also varies based on the pool. So there's no strict minimum amount, and we do hope that going forward, that will become more and more accessible to more people. That's kind of the point. So when will the accredited investor American RAD holders be changed to general public? That's definitely a process. So we're really hoping to get Centrifuge to a point where it would be considered sufficiently decentralized, and then we wouldn't need to worry about US securities law. So because of the nature of US laws, and especially the fact that they're becoming more and more strict, I'm not sure if any of you have been following the news with how that's unfolding, but we're trying to be as careful as possible when it comes to this. So for the time being, it is unfortunately restricted to accredited investors only in the US, but that will definitely open up over time. We're just not sure about a specific date. I'm not sure what you mean here by impermanent loss. Anyone else want to take that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, now that the presentation's over, we can also open it up a bit, and if anyone wants to ask on the mic, you can unmute and talk.
Just, is there any impermanent?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, let's say you're UK based, is there like a minimum amount of dye needed to like mine, do the liquidity mining, or it doesn't matter for anybody that's outside of the US?
So for the rewards, for the liquidity mining, there's no technical minimum there, just that the dye needs to be locked for 60 days. So that's the only requirement. In terms of participating in one of the pools, that's really just up to the asset originator, that it becomes a bit more complicated to work with more parties if they're taking in smaller and smaller amounts. So that should hopefully become easier over time. But I think for the time being, 10K is around the minimum that they look for, even if you're UK based, and that's not really, it doesn't really matter the jurisdiction. It's more about the work that's needed for the asset originator to work there. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So it's more of, if you want to participate in the pool, you have to be an accredited investor.
If you want to participate at all, if you're US based, you need to be accredited. If you're not US based, no. But the minimum amount is more of a logistics question.
Yeah.
But the reward also doesn't depend on a minimum amount. The radial reward depends on being locked for a minimum of 60 days.
And where would we go to lock that up, lock the dye up?
So you can go
Is there
to
like a tutorial?
Centrifuge.io. You can see all of the live pools there. If you're interested, then you can start the process to get signed up and do KYC through Securitize through TinLake. And yeah, Leia just linked that in the chat. And then from there, you'll either get in contact with someone from Centrifuge or from the asset originator themselves.
Yeah, we don't have any
Alright.
video tutorials yet, but that's also something that was on our mind for a bounty reward if anyone was also interested in that.
I appreciate it, guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, B was saying, yeah, when will pool contribution open? Like all the pools on tinlake.centrifuge.io are open right now, so you can go over there and see.
To this follow-up question on Kusama, so Rococo is actually the testnet that Polkadot or like the Web3 team is launching to test out parachains. So we don't necessarily have to experiment on Kusama. That's going to be Rococo.
I think whether we test on Kusama or not, or whether we launch something on Kusama is really a question of the timing and sort of what that will look like. I think our plan is in the long run to go live on Polkadot, and it doesn't really make sense to split the protocol in two and like be a parachain on both networks. So which is like sort of a bit of an interesting question to see also how other projects in the Kusama and Polkadot ecosystem are like choosing in between. For some chains, it definitely makes sense to have a parachain on both networks. I think that is slightly different for us, right? Because like an asset originator wouldn't necessarily want to split a pool across both or launch two pools and try to manage liquidity between two different kinds of two networks. But I don't want I don't want to make up make a fixed statement here. We're going to look at it when we're getting closer to parachains launching on Kusama.
I like the suggestion in the chat to change someone's nationality. Nice. Cool.
It's a 5-year process, unfortunately.
A 5-year headache, I guess. All right, I think we've gotten all of those questions.
There was something about the Cent wallet. That's what we need to hold, Brad. Maybe I could put a link to the wallet.
Oh, there is one question here. Yeah, when you nominate a validator and stake towards them, there is potentially a risk of slashing. There's a threshold of the amount of network that's down in order for slashing to actually begin. So if just one validator goes down, you wouldn't necessarily be slashed. But there is a risk there, which is part of what the block reward is compensating for. And I do believe we're going to have a recording of this call available, right, Dylan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the infrastructure that validators need, you can check out the documentation. That's developer.centrifuge.io. Oops, that was a direct message. My bad. But there's a little bit of an overview of like the bare minimum that you would need to run a validator. Otherwise, definitely join the community Slack channel and the validators channel to have a look at what other validators are using, what kind of infrastructure they have set up. I'd also suggest looking at the types of setups that validators on Polkadot and Kusama have as a good comparison. So yeah, it is possible to both stake and then earn RAD as a block reward at the moment. We did have an automated faucet set up before. That's currently, we had to take that down. It's not available. But if you're interested, then I would reach out to yeah. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, so if anyone else wants to open up any discussion around anything regarding Centrifuge, free to, or you can drop in the chat.
When we plan to launch a parachain on Polkadot, so I do think that slots will open gradually, and when we plan to launch on Polkadot depends on both their timeline and also how the auctions unfold for those parachain slots. So we're super curious what that's going to look like. I don't think anyone has a very clear picture of that. So it definitely depends on a few different factors there. We do hope to do it as soon as is possible once it does come out. Awesome. All right. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Oh. Will you receive RAD and MetaMask automatically? Or do you need to supply sent wallet details? So you will need to claim your RAD on Centrifuge chain using the like Centrifuge native Radial token. So although Centrifuge is bridged to Ethereum and you can move RAD to Ethereum as an ERC20 token, claiming this Radial will be on Centrifuge chain itself. So you'll need to provide a Centrifuge chain address. And Dylan just posted a link to the portal. You can either create the address there or using something, for example, like Parity Signer, which might be a little bit more secure. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful and gives you a good overview of Centrifuge, the Radial token, and how to start participating in the whole network. Let's see. So Christian asks, only the Centrifuge chain address is needed to claim the tokens. I believe you'll also need to verify something on Ethereum, right?
So the DApp for this is not up yet, but the process will be that you will submit a transaction, sort of declaring your Centrifuge address and link it to your Ethereum address on tinlake.centrifuge.io, and then that will mean that you will be able to claim with the Centrifuge address these tokens. So, but this will be basically just a two-step process: signing a transaction on Ethereum, signing a transaction on Substrate to claim. So until you don't have to worry about the rewards sort of you are collecting to date. Sort of anything that we're the front end that we're launching will allow you to claim any rewards you haven't claimed yet, starting from the launch of the revolving pools that we had back in October. So everything you'll be able to get at a later point. And we were aiming to get it done before the holidays, but it looks like it's going to slip into early next year, having the front end up and running for that.
Yeah, and there's no demo that's available either.
No, unfortunately not, but we'll hope. We should share some more details around that soon.
supporting Akala's AUSD. We do plan to work with Akala more going forward. I can't really give you a clear timeline, and it also really depends on Akala's timeline, to be honest. So we're super interested in supporting other stablecoins, but it's just going to take a bit of time for both those stablecoins to become more established in the case of someone like Akala, and then also for us to be able to get the support up and running. So then to B's question, after the 60 days is when you can start claiming the RAD yourself. So then you would have to go in and manually claim this RAD, and then they would be deposited into your wallet. Thanks, Martin.
Maybe Leah could answer this question about what real world assets we're looking at as priority. If she's on the
Sorry,
call.
I was like caught up on, I got sidetracked. Can you repeat, then I'll answer your question.
Yeah. Someone was asking what specific types of real world assets we're targeting as priority for Tinley.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can concur with what Martin is saying. Digital native assets, and I mean, ideally, they're short term and high yielding. That's at least what the investors' feedback that we got. But in general, I would say we're not excluding any asset per se. So if there's an interested company, then feel free to reach out to us.
And then to Beard MacBook. So non-accredited can participate, just not in the US, not US-based ones for now. Any more questions?
Maybe we are good. Just for a second in case another one pops up, but I think it looks like we're good now. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And yeah, happy holidays to all. And I'll be sending out a follow-up email to everyone just to capture everything that we just talked about. And we'll also post it up on the Discourse page.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining and asking these questions. Hope this was helpful to you. Definitely check out all the resources that we mentioned today, and don't hesitate to reach out to us on all of our communication channels.
Yeah, and be sure to check out Tin Lake because we have a bunch of open pools there. Great. Okay. Take care, everyone.
Bye.